Can y'all hear me okay? Yep. All righty, welcome. This is awesome to have a crowd here tonight because you're in for a really good treat, I think. And we want you to just enjoy this as much as you can. Boyce and I went to high school together, and we. Hey, Kathy. Yeah, we got some classmates back there, and this was the year. It was the first year of East Gaston High School, so we went into knowing everybody in our school to knowing only half the people in our school, and we had so many different crazy things going on. School wasn't built, and it was hammering and sawing all day long, and steel trailers, even though it was supposed to be big enough, it wasn't. So no band uniforms, right? We just wore whatever out on the field. But, I saw a picture in the annual today that I was going to go back and look. Did we even have just like white t-shirts and jeans? No, we just wore whatever we wanted to. So, anyway, I did not have any classes with Boyce, did not know him from Adam until we met up on the annual staff. And we worked on the annual staff together. That's the first time I knew him. But, as you come in and you see different people and different faces, I'm hoping he's going to show a picture of this in a little bit. Boyce had hair down to here. I mean, out of all the guys, I believe your hair was the longest.
I just cut it last week.
Oh, and he did one time had a beard and a little mustache. That was pretty good for high school, wasn't it? So, anyway, he has done so much since he graduated, and we have had reunions, and we ended up meeting up again on the committee. So we have been, friends for a while, a good long while. And we were sitting at one of our meetings one day and said, he started talking about the history behind the murals, and I'm like, history? I'm like, okay. I said, and not me, but the person beside me said, that sounds like a program at the museum. So I contacted him to see, and he's been all over everywhere, and he was out of town for a while, so he's going to do a program for us tonight. And at his suggestion, he asked me to, we're going to kind of conduct it like an interview, kind of keep, because I think he's been taught just a long time, and he needs to be under control.
I'm going to go down rabbit trails.
Yes. Yeah, reel him in. And his lovely better half is right here, Donna. She's going to be working the computer. So, all right, you ready?
Sure.
All right. So, Boyce, where do you think your gifting for art came from?
Well, our mom was a gifted pianist. Actually musician. She could play anything. She could read music. She played by ear. She wrote music. And my sister, which is here tonight, she kind of followed in Mother's footsteps a little bit. She was, Janice was pretty good in piano. And then she went the route of motherhood. So, but and I think probably I got some of the, I guess my feel for being able to do color real well came from Dad. He was, I think, in the 40s. I don't know if anybody knows about the sepia tone color processing, but they took oils and they actually colored on top of a sepia tone oil or sepia tone print, and that's how they got color photographs back in those days. And so I think largely it came from both of them, but probably predominantly from my mom. She was very, very talented.
Okay, so where did you actually begin?
Well, I can remember the very first art contest that I was ever in was in the 3rd grade, and I remember taking home a blue ribbon. And you know, and I've seen pictures, it was actually a newspaper, and I've seen the print of that newspaper, and I've got it, and I would not dare bring it and show you that picture of that artwork. I mean, if it's third grade artwork, it was third grade artwork. It was horrible. But you know, all through school, I remember sometimes I think I got preferred treatment because the teachers would get me to do the bulletin boards and any kind of artwork that needed to go on the bulletin boards and the blackboards and things like that. They'd always bring me up front and do it. So I think that's probably, you know, it started like probably in third grade.
Okay. Tell us about the man you call your inspiration and mentor.
It was Dr. Graham Weathers from Stanley. That was an incredible man, and his wife, which put up with us all those years, is sitting here tonight. Gil, thank you for coming. God bless you. You know, after school in the afternoons, I was working at a pharmacy there in Stanley, you know, as a soda jerk, you know, making sure that the soda fountain was taken care of and sweeping, taking care of everything. And the owner of the store, Ken Nixon, he came to me one day and he said, "Hey, I want to introduce you to somebody." And so he took me right next door to Doc's office. And Doc had been my doctor, but he never knew that I had an interest in art, and I never knew that he was an artist as well. But Doc was, at the time, was doing what was called sand casting. And what that is you pull a mold in sand and you melt bronze down at 2200 degrees and you pour whatever you've decided to pour. For us, you know, we were doing some belt buckles, and we were doing some, you know, like little bells and little trinkets and things like that. But over the years, we got into a lost wax process, which, you know, you would wind up you know, doing your sculpture in clay and then pulling a mold from that and then putting the melted wax down inside the mold. Then you'd burn that out, you know, in a kiln, and then again you'd melt your bronze down to 2200 degrees, and then you would pour that. And I was probably the only student in North Carolina that was doing that, because probably Doc was the only person in North Carolina doing that. But I, you know, seriously owed my career to Doc Weathers, and I'll refer to him as Doc. He, you know, he was always there to answer questions, and we learned by mistakes. And I'm here to tell you, you know, a mistake in that shop could cost a finger or a leg or maybe a trip to the hospital, which I think several of us went several times. But you know, that man was absolutely phenomenal in the art world. You know, later on they moved to the other side of town, the other side of the tracks. And that man's studio in his basement, there are probably universities that would kill for that studio. I mean, there was absolutely nothing. If we wanted to do something, if we had something in the back of our mind to do it or wanted to do it, and we'd go to Doc, he'd go, "Hey, let's do it." And so, you know, it may be a project that would last 3 months. It may be a project that would last 10 minutes. But I learned welding under him, learned the whole process, several different processes in pouring bronze and pouring aluminum and pouring metal. And, you know, it's, you know, that type of artwork was not for the sissies. I mean, it, you know, it was reminiscing with Gail a while ago. You know, there were some winters, it was 18 degrees outside, and it'd be 130 degrees in that shop because we'd have 2 furnaces going, and, you know, and the inside of the shop would actually be that hot. I mean, it was just, you know, and he taught me 3D. I mean, you know, it's kind of, I know Donna has walked in the office on occasion, I'd have a drawing up on the computer, and she'd go, "How in the world do you know what you're doing?" Because I have, like, you know, in a 3D drawing, you know, you wouldn't have any solid stuff on it, and you'd have a million little lines running around. But, you know, I think the early years, you know, Doc teaching us how to visualize things really, you know, it really made an impact. You know, so basically Doc Weathers was, you know, He's been there.
Did you take art as a class?
No, art was not offered in any of the schools until my senior year in high school. And I think the picture of Doc and Mr. Moody, those were the two guys that I owed my career to. Mr. Moody tried to get me to go to the University of Minnesota. He said, "Boyce, I can get you a full-pay scholarship if you want to go." And I looked at him, I said, 12 years has been enough, and I don't want to spend 4 years in the north. So, because of Doc, I entered sculpture in the North Carolina Scholastic Art Awards. And I won 3 gold keys that year, and all 3 of them were done in that shop. It was molded and sculpted and poured in that shop. And sad to say, the only picture that I have of one of the pieces is the light bulb, and it was the name of that one was Central Park. But the other one was a bronze John, and it was a little tabletop sculpture that had a bathtub, a commode, a sink, and some other things in there. And it all tied together in a waterworks type thing, and it was called Bronze John. And the other one was a belt buckle, one of the Scholastic Art Awards on the belt buckle. And I think a picture of the gold keys up there, and I'm actually wearing the gold key here. So that was the high school stuff, and for probably another 7 or 8 years, I worked as an apprentice with Doc. We traveled to museums. We did sculptures for basketball players in Atlanta, the president of the Atlanta Merchandise Mart. We did a sculpture for him. Plus, Doc was always doing busts for people in Stanley, like Mr. Hansel and a couple other people, and we were all part of that. My brother and I, and there were 2 or 3 other guys that were helping out too. And then Doc got me interested in. We started doing some stuff at the Little Theater in Gastonia, building sets and things like that for that. So I started doing things for the Little Theater, and I also got involved with our local churches doing sets and things like that for the church. That was all part of building and sculpting and things like that. So
There was a huge turning point in your life and career.
June of 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark came out. I saw that movie at a matinee, went back that night to see it again, went back the next day, took my buddies with me, and went back the next day, and sitting in those different things, I'm going, I can do that. I think I can do that. So over the next couple of years, of course, I was in Wilmington at the time, and the sets got bigger and more elaborate in the church that I was going to down there. So that was the start of the theater and the set design stuff. And then my in-laws were very involved in PTL, Heritage USA at PTL. So I came and applied at PTL and got hired there as a scenic artist, actually professionally building sets and painting sets and scenic painting and things like that. So that was probably the very beginning of my professional career, which is you get paid for doing stuff you want to do. So I just couldn't see myself working for Duke Power all my life. Not that that's anything wrong with that, but I just So anyway, I remember one time we were having a meeting one morning. Of course, we had prayer and devotions every morning. But there were a couple of us that, we had several scenic artists and designers on staff there, So we were talking one morning, and I remember we came up with the idea, we ought to go to Hollywood and learn the tricks of the trade and bring it back to the Christian world. Bring it back to the churches, bring it back to things like that. So, for the next couple of years after that, I worked for the FBI in D.C., but came back, and worked in the art world. And I worked at PTL doing, for several years, doing sets and backdrops and things like that. And then I wound up getting involved in a television situation in Orlando. So I moved to Orlando and took the position with a Christian television station in Orlando. And just a few months after that, Universal Studios came into the world. And so one of the guys, actually the lighting director at the station, he came to me one morning. He said, "Boyce," he said, they've got a position on the hotline at Universal. You need to call it and see what it's all about." So I did, and it was the E.T. ride. So I pestered that art director every day for a month. And so I wound up getting employed by Universal Studios as the assistant art director for the E.T. ride at Universal Studios. And what that encompassed was I had to make sure that all the vendors, special effects vendors, lighting vendors, sound vendors, the art vendors, it was my responsibility to make sure that they gave us exactly what was on the drawings. And any changes went through my desk. In other words, I wound up having to design a lot of the changes, and that's where I got into the world of 3D again. And this was before computers. This was before any kind of computer design stuff was going on. So that wound up being where I got involved with Universal Studios and my little friend E.T. And that is an official head that came off the ride vehicles. If I want to auction it off, there's a reserve, and that reserve is $20,000. So I need a new car, by the way. No, just kidding. So when the project was wrapping up in Orlando, they had decided they were going to build the E.T. ride in California, in Hollywood. So I was on the team to go, and I was the art director for the scenic company for the E.T. ride in Los Angeles. Los Angeles is a great place to visit. Don't want to live there. But that was a great experience. I've always said about Los Angeles and about that experience out there, you wouldn't even trust your mom in Los Angeles. That's always just been kind of like what we've always joked with. But learned a lot, got to see a lot. And when the project ended there, I came back to Orlando and started working with a guy named Richard Crane Productions. Now, Richard Crane was the mastermind behind King Kong, and he was the mastermind behind Earthquake at both Hollywood and Orlando, Florida. So he had a project going on in Italy. It was a pirate ride. Icasari was the name of it. And so he hired me as the art director, the designer art director. So I was able to help design this ride. And then I was on staff there for I don't know, 6 months or so. And then we moved the operation to Italy. So I got to go to Italy for a year and was the scenic art director for the installation as well. So that was really, really something different. And yes, the food is amazing in Italy. It is amazing. The only time I had indigestion the whole time was when I came home for Christmas.
Tell them what a dark ride is.
Oh, a dark ride. For those who don't know what a dark ride is, it's a ride that is built inside a building, and you control everything. You control the smell, you control the lights, you control everything. As a matter of fact, in the E.T. ride, there were scent cannons that was placed in and around that. So when you're in the forest area, the little scent tablets were pine, and so it falls on a little thing and it shoots out a little scent that you smell. Actually one of the rooms was the desolation room, and that's where E.T.'s planet is blowing up and it's about to destroy itself. Well, that smelled like burning sulfur in there, so we had a scent that was like that. So, but a dark ride is just that. You control everything. All your senses are controlled by you or by us inside that ride. That's what a dark ride is. Pirates of the Caribbean at Disney, Those are all dark rides. They control everything. They control your senses is basically what a dark ride is all about. Same way the one in Italy. That was it. It is still the longest and the largest dark ride in the world. Most dark rides are anywhere between 3 and 4.5 minutes. This ride in Italy is 11 minutes long. It's 18 scenes long. And it's 3 stories tall. It's the largest dark ride in the world. It was then, and it is now still. There for a year, and so then I came back to Orlando when that project was over, and we had a project going on in Hong Kong. Now we designed several dark rides and several museums and things like that while I was, I was senior designer for Richard Crane Productions. So we designed anything. If you wanted a restaurant designed a certain way, we would design it. And so when we got back, I was the designer for a project in Hong Kong. It was a motion-based simulator, and also that was on the top floor in the bowl that you saw in there. And then in the basement there was a dark ride, and it was basically a computerized ride that told you the history of Hong Kong. So after that, we wound up getting the contract to design the new Orlando Science Center, and in that particular thing, I was the senior designer on that project, and I was able to all the designs for all the different areas came through me, but I was the designer for Nature Works, and that was an experience because they wanted animals and fish and reptiles and all kinds of stuff. So I worked closely. I spent probably half of my time at SeaWorld studying and talking to the guys over there about the husbandry of how to keep an alligator alive. Now, in that one picture up there, the alligator, they can only get 4 feet long in that particular environment because an alligator can actually spring off of his tail the same length of his body. So the hot rock had to be at least 6 to 8 feet from the handrail, and the handrail had to be 6 feet up from the bottom of the pool so that the alligators couldn't get out. And they changed those alligators. Then, I don't know about now, but then they changed the alligators about every 3 months. That was a fun project. I also got to do some splunking. We got to go down into some caves and sinkholes in Florida. That was interesting, spooky, scary, but it was really fun. I had fun in Orlando. And then, I got back to North Carolina.
He's taking my line.
I'm sorry.
Have you noticed? See, I told you.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So what was next?
I bet he got back to North Carolina.
I got back to North Carolina. The Science Center, the contract ended, and now to say something here for everybody who thinks that I'm a job hopper. When you're in this kind of business, you go where the work is. When you're a freelance artist, you go where the work is. It may be on the West Coast, it may be in Italy, it can be in China, it can be in Hong Kong, it can be anywhere. You go where the work's at. So, but anyway, I came back home, and I started a freelance career freelance position with Paramount. At the time, Paramount owned the 5 parks: Carowinds, Kings Dominion, Kings Island, Great America in California, and Canada's Wonderland. And the department that I was in, which was the research and development, we designed all the sets that you see in all the theaters in all 5 of those parks. At one time, Carowinds had 7 different theaters, and we designed all the sets for all that. We would meet with the producer. The producer would say, okay, we want this show to be like this or like that, And so we'd start our little creative process, and we'd come up with drawings and things, go back to the producer, and if they liked it, then we sent the drawings out to the floor, and we built the drawings. We had a shop, a 20,000 square foot shop in Charlotte, and we built all the sets for Carowinds and all the other parks as well. That was a Paramount bought those parks. I don't know if you guys remember, it hadn't always been Paramount. Taft Entertainment owned them for a while. So, but anyway, that was the story with Paramount. And they eventually sold the parks to Cedar Fair, I think it was. You know, yes, something. It was big competitors to Six Flags, you know, over America. But anyway, that was the different parks. You know, all the different things, and also all the things that went outside on the little sets, like little country jamborees and things like that. That, you know, Scooby's World. You know, we did all that. You know, every bit of that came out of our office. If you wrote it at Carowinds, we designed it. If you went to a show at Carowinds, we designed the show. So.
That's good. Was that affiliated with Star Trek?
Oh yeah, Star Trek. Yeah, Star Trek. Star Trek Earth Tour was something that we put together for county fairs and convention centers. And interesting story. I was wanting this one character. Now I don't know. Are there any Star Wars freaks in here? Star Trek freaks. Oh well, that story doesn't make sense then. One of the key designers for all of the characters in Star Trek was Michael Westmoreland, and I was wanting a couple of characters in that show that we were designing for the Los Angeles Trade Center, and so one night, because you know, on the East Coast, if you had to deal with the West Coast, you always wound up having to stay in the office till at least 8 o'clock at night because of the time change. So I decided just to call, you know, the office in California to see if I could get, you know, some of these masks. And Michael Westmoreland answered the phone.
Oh.
He said, "Yeah, what do you want?" And I went down the list. He said, "All right, I'll get it in the mail to you." A week later, all this stuff came in. All these masks came in. The only thing I had to do was get the mannequins and put them on. And we also, they sent us just a truckload full of little props. And it was all the props from the original Star Trek. And you saw pictures of the originals, what do you call it?
The communicator?
Communicate, but the flight deck. It was all there, and it was, and the lights on that was actually Christmas lights that they plugged in and plugged out when they went. But that little communicator, you know, the very original one, you know, when they did that, they wound up having to redo it because once they did that, it would go flying across the set, and they'd have to do another take on it. You know, so, but it was little stuff like that, the captains, you know, they sent us suits as well. And he couldn't have been any taller than this. I mean, he was tiny. Picard was bigger, but Captain Kirk was a real small little dude. And then, of course, we had all the blades from the Klingons and all that kind of stuff. And you guys wouldn't believe half of that stuff is just plywood, sanded down, painted with a coat of clear coat on it. That's all it is. That's all it is. You know. Now, of course, later on in the next generation stuff, you know, they started doing molds and pulling plastics and stuff like that. But that's the way they filmed that early stuff.
Okay, is everybody familiar with Discovery Place? Want to talk about that?
Discovery Place is that was not a big creative move. The doors were closing at Paramount. They decided that Paramount was going to unload the 5 parks. So we saw the writing on the wall, and you know, I left about a month before they closed the doors. And so I went, and one of the other guys, one of the vice president of the construction that was down there, he went to Discovery Place, and you know, he called me and said, "Hey, you know, I could use you up here." So I decided to go. What we did is when I got there, or when we got there, the Discovery Place, you know, with all their sets and their little exhibits and things like that, they were only running 60% up and running. You know, so a lot of their little exhibits and things were not working. So we went in there, and they gave us a year to bring it up to at least 80%. And in 9 months, we had 96% ratio working at at Discovery Place. So, they had an administration change, and so everybody was starting to bow out because of that. But it did last. There was about a 2-year stint there. So.
Okay, so you got a call that asked you to put your mural business on hold?
Yeah, this was a guy that worked with us at Paramount, and when they closed the shop, he started his own business, and so he called me and he said, "Boyce," he said, "can you put your mural business on hold for a little while?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "What you got going on?" So he told me, he said, "We've just got the contract to design. We got the contract to design the designs for the new world of Coca-Cola." And what that means is the company who had the contract for the design was Jack Rouse and Associates in Cincinnati. And what they were doing, they were just feeding us the meetings from Coke, because they did not have the talent at their place to develop the things that we needed to develop. So that's how we got in with Coca-Cola. And we would be with Coke. I mean, we would come up and we'd have the meeting. We'd go down there. They'd come up here. We'd have meetings with them. And so they'd say, "Okay, we want to go this route." So there were only 3 of us designing this thing, and so we would spend about 6 months designing something, and then Coke would have an administration change, and they would scrap everything. They would give us a call and say, "Okay, we've got a new administration change, and they don't like where it's going, so we need to change gears." So another 6 months, and that happened 4 different times. We were on design contracts for Coca-Cola for 2.5 years. But has anybody ever been to the new world of Coca-Cola? We designed every single thing inside that building. Everything that you see, we designed. All the theaters, the seating, everything, the big Coke bottles. Anything that you see inside the 4 walls of Coca-Cola, we designed. There's only
They
3 of us.
finally had enough stable administrators that they let you go to
Finally.
work.
Finally. And I mean, it was really fun though. At the very beginning, we had all this little whimsical stuff. I mean, I felt like we were in Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Those little things, doing Coca-Cola. But Coca-Cola also had, they also had like 5 million artifacts that they wanted us to use. And, I mean, that could be anywhere from a nut and a bolt all the way up to the yellow truck, so, and that was a fun project. That was a lot of fun. A lot of blood, sweat, and tears went into it as well. After that, in Art Designs, the same 3 guys, we designed the West Virginia Museum in West Virginia, in Charleston, West Virginia. That was another one of those projects where they gave us an empty building, 4 walls, and everything inside that building was designed around the 2.5 million artifacts that they had. And that was anywhere from the coal cars. I got the fun part of it. I got to design the actual, what do you call it when it falls in on itself? The cave-ins. I got to design the cave-in. Didn't have to experience it, but yeah. And all that is every bit of that is foam and gunite. Gunite is a type of concrete, but that's all it is. That painting. Let's see. Now we don't have pictures for this one, but within our designs, we also had the contract for all the designs for Norwegian Cruise Lines for their parades, their anything that you saw on their stages, behind the curtain, it went through us. Same way we had a contract with Royal Caribbean Cruise Line. I forgot which one came across. One came across in a storm, and we lost some stuff on that one. But I think it was the Voyager of the Seas had a full skating rink in it. And we got to design all the costumes and all the things they carried and all the props and stuff for that. Anytime, one of them actually had a park on top of the deck. And we designed everything for all that as well. So, you know, we had a lot of fun, in our designs. But the, another fun one was Ferrari. They had this water ride, and the water ride was basically, this was in Dubai, UAE, and this water ride was, you actually got into a vehicle and you rode the water system inside an F-10 engine. You know, so you had all these things moving. You had the gears and the ratios and the pistons and the valves and all that kind of stuff. You know, we designed all that. And these projects take about a year to design. We were doing nothing but designing for Ferrari for an entire year. And actually we were designing that past the economic thing that happened in 2008 because the Ferrari pavilion, the big building, yeah, if you want to go back to it, that building right there, that and one other pavilion was the only ones that had money in the bank in 2008 when the bottom dropped out of the market. And so we were able to continue going with this, you know, through some of that economic disasters that happened in 2008. Yeah, that's the pistons. You know, it's probably a scary ride for a kid because you got all these things coming at you. And then when you're going down, you drop down, and then I think go back one. Keep going back. One more thing. One more. Those are gears, the transmission gears, and I mean you get within like a meter of 3.25 feet. You get within that much distance to these big old things that's twisting and turning around you. So it's probably that's probably scary to a kid. I never thought about it, but it probably. Well, I mean, look at a power ride. Swashbuckler, you know. So anyway.
But that ride is in a park in Dubai.
In Dubai.
And you were there for how long?
I didn't have to go to Dubai.
Okay.
That was designed here in I think a scenic company we used two different scenic companies, one in Orlando and one in LA to build the scenery for all that. And of course, all that gets shipped over there. And then these drawings are from two different theaters that we designed that went into the same pavilion. There's no telling how big a pavilion is. You know, I never got there.
Okay. What are some local places where people can see your work?
Probably right off the top, I think it's next, is the parade, the Charlotte Parade, the Turkey Parade we call it. You know, I've actually worked on that parade probably 6 or 7 years. You know, designing floats, building the floats, painting the floats, making sure the floats work right, and all that kind of stuff. You know, and you know, people don't realize it, but you have to take so much in consideration on things like that, you know, because of power lines, street signs, people running out. You know, so you have to, it's almost like you have to dummy safe everything, just because you have no idea what the public can do to something. I've always said, you know, give the public a feather and put them in a stainless steel room and they'll find something to tear up. You know, so that's kind of like what we did for the parade. And this was through Charlotte's Inner City Partners. And they start that usually in June or July. I haven't been involved with them in a few years, but it's usually started around June or July. And we're working till midnight before the parade the next morning, getting things out there. The other one, NASCAR Hall of Fame. Not a lot to do with that. A couple of things. The wall that you see on the right with all the stuff, that was pretty much our design for that. Of course, we had to design that stuff specified by NASCAR. You know, so there's a lot that goes into things like that, and you wind up buying a lot of that stuff from the manufacturers that make it for NASCAR. things like the metal, you know, pipe and the grid and things like that. But all the other stuff, you know, you have to, and all this has to be engineered, you know, for your codes in Charlotte, your NADA or ADA, the Handicap Society. You got to design everything based on that. Oh, I'm gonna go back. brought something up. In Orlando, when we were designing the ET ride, they kept talking about the woman in red high heels. In the evacuation, anywhere on that ride, if it stops, you've got to get people off the ride, you know, because, you know, chances are you can't move it up or down. And that, you know, of course, in the ET ride, you know, there's so much rock in there, and all that rock is hand carved. We had to make sure that a stiletto heel would not get in a crack on everything that we made. You know, and so, you know, we always talk about it. I have a picture of a red high heel shoe. I actually bought a pair and I kept it on my desk in Florida. But anyway, that was part of that. So NASCAR, yeah, we did a lot of stuff there at NASCAR Hall of Fame. And then the Billy Graham Library, we did not a lot of stuff at Billy Graham Library, but I don't know if you remember that, if you've been there, Ruth Graham's little area was a type of Chinese thing. That was, I'm not sure the history of that, but we wound up building, I was on contract with Gelbach Design in Charlotte, and we built that from scratch. Missionaries in China, yeah. And you know, we built some little benches, and there's I think a World War II thing in there. We built all that as well. And then Narrowway. Anybody ever been to Narrowway? Okay, that I have been involved with Narrowway since their beginnings. But the set that's there now is probably the largest set that I've ever designed and ever built. And you'll see some of the pictures up there. It's also the worst accident I've ever had. I had one of the walls fall on me.
Now, where is that?
That's in Fort Mill, South Carolina. That was, it took me about 6 months to design that whole thing, and it took us about 4 or 5 months to build it. And you know, those kids or those people at Narrowway, they're raised in that theater. And those kids, I mean, I had some 15, 16-year-olds that knew their way around saws as good as I did. So it was great.
We've never been.
Yeah.
We've been several times.
The wall behind that one on the far left here is the wall that fell on me. And this was the beginning of COVID. And you know, normally I build scenic sets out of 1x4 and Luan. And I needed 900 1x16s, 1x4x16s. And within a 90-mile radius of Charlotte or Fort Mill, there was only 147 1x4x16s. And I had to use 2x4s. And so that made that set that much heavier, which made it hit me so much worse. So anyway, I had a broken ankle from that. But yeah, that's, if you guys ever get a chance to, just say that this is one of those situations to where art is not clean. You know, it's more than just getting a paintbrush, put in your hand, and sitting at your easel. We use that's foam, polyurethane foam that we spray, and then if it looks, that's foam, and that is actually, when I was in Israel in 2017, this set right here is, even the cracks and crevices are identical to the set, or to the tomb that's in Israel. I intentionally did it that way, but that's the actual size and everything. But it's you're using chainsaws and grinders and rasp and everything else for that stuff. And then churches. Anybody ever been to the Easter Cantata at Stanley Pentecostal Baptist Church? That was a labor of love. I actually designed that while I was working at Discovery Place.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's,
Broken ankle.
that's the broken ankle. So,
But you were still working.
I'll still work, oh yeah. Yeah, that happened on a Sunday. I took the week off and was back working the following Monday. Against my doctor's
Oh,
orders.
yeah.
But anyway, the set in Stanley, that's a pencil sketch of the actual set. And this was, my brother helped me paint the murals in this, and that's us discussing the actual size. These murals are 14 feet tall by 35 feet wide. And we laid those out on the gym floor with a plywood base around, stapled it, and then actually we painted them on the floor. And then you'll see some more pictures. We actually painted, that's the actual set. 2,600 man hours on that set.
Wow.
We started building that set the second week in January, and we loaded in the third week in March. 2,600 man hours in between that time. Now Stanley has a really good volunteer base too. I mean, those guys, they know how to build things. But we built things. I built a pirate ship. That's actually blacklight paint on the actual mural. And all that you see that looks glowing, that is less than 2 ounces of paint that's on a 14 by 35 foot mural. That's how intense that paint is. And it's not the blacklight paint you go down to Walmart and buy. This stuff is $80 an ounce.
Wow.
It was back in 2006. I don't tell what it is now. But yeah, that was all done. The Stanley, those of you who have seen that entire thing is done by the people at that church. The only thing that I bought were the capitals on top of the columns and the guard leather. Everything else, we made the helmets and the sheaths and all that kind of stuff. So, and then I don't know what's next. So we did all that. All that stuff is done inside the church.
It's
That's
an awesome
Bear Summit.
program, you gotta go. They do it every year, still
Yeah.
doing it.
Oh yeah. That's the pirate ship. I was the mean pirate that year. That was me, Barbosa. This is a church in Kinston, North Carolina. We took 2006 off in Stanley, and so I designed and built this set for the Kinston church. Same way, I mean, it's the same stuff. It's luan and plywood and foam carved. These are the concepts that I gave to the church before they want to know what they were spending their money on. But that was that. That's part of their set. That's the murals from that set. I think, what's next? Oh, that's a church over in Charlotte, United House of Prayer for All People. That dove is 14 feet wide. I think and that was built at Doc's.
Our basement.
Her basement.
Oh, wow.
Y'all would not believe some of the stuff that came out of that basement.
I said, "You're killing us."
Doc would go upstairs probably maybe 9 or 10 o'clock. He goes, "All right, guys, boys, y'all hold it down a little bit. Your girl's gonna be trying to sleep. She got to work tomorrow." We'd drop something. We'd go. Yeah, that's it. There's a hair.
Oh, that's cool.
The beard. What? Yeah, 13-foot wingspan, and that's the installation.
Because it was made out of,
It was actually the guts is actually metal with screen wire. Shot it with foam, carved it, and then put 3 layers of fiberglass on it.
so it was still kind of,
Now, probably if somebody asked me earlier about what my favorite project was outside of something like ET, This next project is probably one of my favorite projects. This was a church in Goldsboro. Do y'all know what a not haunted house, Judgment House is? Judgment House is actually an alternative production during Halloween, for churches to use. Anyway, he called me and he said, "Hey, I'm getting ready to build a 20,000 square foot children's facility. I want you to design it for me." I said, "All right." So I was back and forth, I don't know, for about 9 or 10 months. And so we came up with, the building is set in 4 different sections. Each section is 40 by 75. And one area is like a children's camp, summer camp. And those, that's a playground on that side, but that's a puppet stage behind those rocks there. And then there's a puppet stage in that tree. That's bathrooms and conference rooms. That's the audio booth. That's the mural. My brother painted the mural, by the way. That's the puppet stage. And that was built in 2015, and it looks just like that today. And they run 200 kids a Sunday. So this was the other. This is probably the elementary age. This was the spaceship that we built. I had over 10,000 parts and pieces CNC routed in this particular set here. And it's got video projection. There's 2 different puppet stages, a little band stage on one side. And this wraps around the whole room, not just the stage. But it's but he is a dreamer. And this was a church up in Hendersonville. They contacted me, and same thing. We've got a kids area that we want to get into, and we like what you've done in Goldsboro. Can you come up? We don't want to spend as much money as they did, but we want you to come and design it for us. So that's the walk-in, and then that's the little kids area. We call that the Pee Wee Herman Playhouse type feel. So that it was a fun project. That was 3, 4 months. 4 months, and actually, on two of us built this whole thing. It was a fun project.
Next.
All right, your turn. Told you I could
That's to
talk.
say, you're doing fine.
I told you I could talk.
You warned me. And then a new role. Tell us about the movies.
All right. Does anybody know Rick Eldridge?
Yes.
I know a couple of you do. Back in 2015, actually it just finished up that big project in Goldsboro. Rick called me and he said, "Hey, I got a project I need your help on." I said, "Okay, what is it?" He said, "Well, there's a Hallmark film being shot in Kentucky, and I want to get you involved in it if you can." And I said, "Well," I'll meet with you and see. So anyway, we did. The name of the movie is Ultimate Legacy. Not a lot of art stuff. Now, what a production designer does on a movie, he is responsible for the look of the film. So, what you may see that looks like somebody's living room, it is somebody's living room, but you've gone in and you've gutted their stuff and you've brought your stuff in that everybody wants. So that's kind of like what it was in there. That was not a period piece. It was current day. So we didn't have a lot of stuff to build. I did have to build Raquel Welch, Brian Dennehy.
You built Raquel?
No, I didn't build Raquel Welch. Some of that plastic probably. But there's Rick with Bill Cobb and Brian Dennehy. Remember him? He was one of the stars in this one. That's Lee Merriweather. She was a gem. Oh man, she was great. Yeah, she was the original Catwoman in the 50s, 50s. Yeah. That was Rick. That was our star. That's Miko Paul. I taught him how to ride the bike. He didn't know how to ride, and he had 3 scenes on a motorcycle.
You should have done it for him.
I did. I did do the stunt, in the opening of the thing. I read it, but now that go back, sweetie. That cemetery there, that was built on this lady's property because if anybody's ever seen the movie, Raquel Welch dies. She's the grandmother of the picture, and she's buried there. Well, not really, but that's right. So anyway, that was the big set that we had to build, and that's all fake. Underneath all that stuff is just plywood on 4x4s and covered. Mulligan, Pat Boone was the they call it the box office draw when you got a famous actor. Y'all know that you don't shoot a movie in sequence. You may shoot the end of it first or whatever. So Pat Boone was in, I think he was there for 3 weeks or 2 or 3 weeks. But anyway, you shoot all their scenes first. But this was shot in Toccoa, Georgia. That was in 2022, I believe. That was during COVID too. Now, go back, sweetie, to the, explain something here. One more. All right, see that? That's a piece of plywood that's painted to look that way.
Oh, so is that
All right.
is.
Well, that's AstroTurf, but the brick is painted. All right, but it goes on the golf course on the next slide. And see, that's what it's supposed to look like, and that's what the director wanted. You give the director what they want. So that's what he wanted. Airplane. That was a cool job.
You painted on it?
Huh?
You painted it?
No, that's a vinyl graphic. We had to develop a logo. The plane was a guy who was from China, and so we had to come up with a Chinese, vinyl application that goes on the plane. So I got to put it up there. That's it. The guy that owns that plane later in one of the next movies is actually one of the producers, executive producer. Executive producers are the guys that comes up with the money, which is not me. That was a rain scene, and what we did, we had 4 people stationed around the car with bug sprayers, just shooting the water down to make it look like it was raining. There's a motorcycle wreck, motocross wreck in the script, so I brought in this dirt, and we made the motorcycle crash scene inside that barn there. Right there. That's our crew. That's Rick and myself. Never Give Up is next. That's Never Give Up. That's the Brad Men's story. He won the Olympics in '85, I believe it was. He's deaf, and you would not believe the stipulations on the deaf world in Olympics. They can't wear hearing aids. There's all kinds of, but anyway, all that's brought out in the movie. But it's his story. It's the Brad Men's story. Never Give Up. That's him. Super nice guy. That's actually his medal. He let us use it. And I had to duplicate that. That's one of the sets. That was a refrigerator I bought. And this particular scene took place in 1972. We had 1968, 72, 82, and 85. We had to develop sets for those years. And the kitchen that we actually shot in, it looked like 1982. So I just bought a refrigerator and painted it, and of course we built those. And that was a replication of the stanchions at the Olympics that year. Lusso, that was shot here in Charlotte, or actually at Rural Hills. Lusso is the guy who, a one-man army, George Washington says he's a one-man army. And we shot that up there. I actually shot the trailer there. cold. You were there that day. It was cold, man, it was cold. We shot that in January.
Wow.
Man, it was cold. All right, this is the latest, this is my last big project. Just finished up on this back in April of last year. This was a this was a big project. This was a really big project. We had to build an 1881 western town in 3 months. We built the entire town. You'll see pictures of it. We built the entire town in 3.5 months. I had 80 carpenters and about 30 scenic artists working, 8, 10, 12-hour days. Lee Majors was the main box office draw, and Stafford, Nancy Stafford, and the next one is Maria Savino. Those were the box office draws for this one. This guy played in the what's the people that can't die? Yeah, Walking Dead. That's me. I didn't make it in the film. Didn't make it in the film. That's part of our crew. That's Rick and the executive producers. That's me, the director. He's a great guy. That's the aerial view of the set, and that's starting to get into. Now the house there on the left. We'll see it again. We'll see it again. This was the we actually built. The reason this this took a little bit longer than it normally would, because they wanted this thing to be built semi-permanent, because they're talking about doing a sequel, or possibly even doing a series out of it. So we had to hurricane-proof these structures. So we built these structures around these buildings, and those buildings also became our sound stages for our interior shots as well. Snakes and spiders and alligators. Ew. Those were the sound stages that we wound up having to clear out. That's one of the things. That's the beginning of the hotel. But we had a hotel, a general store, a saloon, a bank, a post office, a sheriff's office. That's the finished hotel. That's our church, the beginning of the church. We use Connex boxes as our support system as well. Connex boxes are, sea land containers to ship with. That was Easter Sunday morning, our sunrise service. Rick took that one morning. NASA had just sent up some kind of a rocket, and that was the final of the church. The bell up there weighs about 40 pounds. It's made out of foam.
Wow.
That's more of the saloon. I don't know who that is. That's the beginning of the inside of the saloon, and you'll see the finished pictures in just a second. All this is developed in CAD. Every nail, every board, everything is designed out. That's it. That's the finish. Tyrus, off of Gutfeld. Y'all know who Tyrus is? Humongous guy. He was in that scene. That's the saloon in the afternoon sun. That's the beginning of the general store. General store. General store. That's the sheriff's office. Right there, view, top view of it. That's the town. It's amazing what you can get by with by not doing in film, because they rack so much stuff out of focus. This was a fun project. A lot of work, but it was fun. Now that is a settlement. That's the. I went out on site and took a picture of the landscape, and then I designed the house and actually put that design inside in Photoshop. I married it all together so that the director could see what he wanted. That's the beginning of that house. Now that house was built in 15 days.
Wow.
15 days. This is the
Supervisor.
big, yeah, holding the wall up. This
Not gonna
was
follow me this time.
this was the gangster hideout area. We call this the Ghost Ranch. That was the final, and we built this 4.5 days. This one. It took the guys longer to set up the inside than it did to build the whole house. Now those rocks that it's sitting on, that's actually foam. That's not real rock.
The wood on that's not old wood, you painted it to look like old.
Some of it's old. We actually went to a mill and actually bought some lumber, but we also had to use some new stuff. That's what it looked like inside. Now, after we filmed in here, the owner, the producer, it's filmed on his ranch. He tore the roof off and put a new roof on it so that he could use that as one of his offices. That's one of the shots. That other one was a funeral. This was just getting set up in the morning. Yep, the Cartwright Overland is from out in Texas. We actually the Wranglers that we used on this particular shoot, they're the ones that were Wranglers in Yellowstone. So they come well equipped. You have no idea what it costs to bring horses and wagons across this country. Man, I wish I had one. So, and now we're into the murals.
We don't really say
At what time? Are we okay on time?
It's about 10 after. We're about finished. Are you okay to go on with maybe outside?
Yeah, I only got 400 pictures left.
I can cook fast.
Yeah, these are just murals, and most everybody's seen this. Now, this was not my design. They came to me, they said, "Boyce, would you have a problem painting somebody else's design?" I said, "Absolutely not, I don't care." So, what was her name, Susan? Well, actually, it's on one of these clips. It was designed by, and I actually researched all of her. Terry Ryan. I think she was 2 years after. Did anybody know her? She's what?
She's Paige's age. She's a class of 76.
6, okay. Yeah, she was the one that designed the mural. And she told Melanie and Bobby, said, "Look, I can't paint, but if Boyce doesn't have a problem painting it." I said, "Oh, it don't bother me." This is the original picture of the original Coca-Cola mural. And that's what it looked like when the stucco started peeling off. And that's the beginning of, did I mention it was hot that day?
Yeah, we walked by there that day, it was so hot.
It was really hot. I was telling some of the ladies earlier, there's some controversy about this mural of when it was painted, because in my research, It's the Real Thing was not entered into Coca-Cola's marketing until I think mid-60s, I think 68, something like that. Well, that mural was painted in the 50s. And then I later found out that there are several artists, muralists that was employed, Coke employed them to go around the southeastern part of the United States and paint. And these guys stayed with Coke for like 58 years. And they, the story had it that they would add certain things. If they knew something was coming down the pike, they would add certain things to these murals, and apparently that's what happened. Now the Sprite Boy, everybody thinks the Sprite Boy was developed to bring in the Sprite drink, which was a Coca-Cola brand name. But the guy who did the Santa Claus for Coca-Cola is the same guy who did the Sprite Boy. And the reason the Sprite Boy was developed was Coca-Cola was having a hard time with people throughout the United States and Europe calling Coca-Cola Coke. So Coca-Cola developed the Sprite Boy to let everybody know it was okay to call Coca-Cola Coke. Now that's the story I got from the Coke company. And this is right down the street.
Right.
Down
See apartments.
the street. Boy, now it was hot that day.
Oh,
That's
I bet.
goodness, it was hot. Oh, this is a school in Columbia, Dreher Blue Devils.
Go through these fast.
Yeah, go through these fast. These are just, this was another school, their logo. They were the Shamrocks. This was a school in Columbia as well. They were the Hornets. Well, that takes a lot of time. Those logos. Ugh. This was also Columbia. This is a school that they bring the gifted kids from regular schools, and they bring them into Hayward Technical Institute, sort of like, what's the one that we have on this time? Highland. Highland's full though, I mean, they're full time, but they bring these kids in. And when I painted that mural, they offered 13 different studies for these kids. And these kids would come over an hour a day and study in this environment, and then they'd bus them back to their normal school. So these are just, basic mascots. This was a fun project.
That's cute.
Yeah.
Ooh, tractor.
Yep. John Deere and Massey Ferguson.
Yes.
It's amazing what some of these principals want on their walls. This
How
was
do
fun.
they tell?
Huh?
I mean, do they have a picture or something?
Usually I meet with them and we'll discuss what they're thinking about, and then I'll come home and work up a concept and then, send it back to them, and they'll say yay or nay or whatever. Yeah.
What do you do in your spare time?
Ride the motorcycle.
You ride motorcycles?
Yeah.
That's one thing we have in common. I ride on the back of one though.
This was one of my first murals.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's so pretty and colorful.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was fun. Bulldog.
Wow, those are so good.
This is a train mural in Stanley. I was telling some of the ladies earlier, it took me 2 months to design this before I ever put the first drop of paint on the wall. And that was another hot project too. But this particular mural is actually historically correct. The Star Trek, the building is actually the original depot that burned down in Stanley in 1929. And then the engine is actually a Baldwin engine. It's built in Philadelphia, and it ran the tracks between Lincoln and Charlotte in the 40s and 50s. The green cars are the cars that they transported soldiers from Lincolnton to Mecklenburg County. So that's a historically accurate mural. It took forever to paint because of weather. Actually, in my spare time, I put puzzles together on the computer. I love putting puzzles together. That was my first,
Space.
the space guy. That was my very first mural. ever on a wall.
Wow.
They're painted on a wall. Those were good. They were fun. This was a concert down at PTL. This group, the reason it's Russia, there were a group of guys. They had formed a band in Russia, a Christian band in Russia, and they kicked them out of Russia. So they started touring Europe and touring the United States. And that mural is 25 feet tall by 52 feet wide. Painted on the floor. That's just another school in Columbia. That's Donna's favorite. Just hanging around. Now, these are paintings that I've either done for Christmas presents or just doing something.
How do you get your name on the list?
I got cards up here. That was, Donna's daughter went to Iceland a couple of years ago, and they took a picture of her sitting on those rocks, and I just painted her out of rocks. Well, she wanted,
She got rid of the
and
best part.
then her other daughter, she and her son went to the Grand Canyon, and her son took this picture, and then I just, there were people in it, I took people in it. That's Patiently Waiting. Actually, one of our classmates brought that one. I still have that. So
see, Boyce is not just your normal
That's right.
art
Artist.
person.
No.
You can do it all.
well,
That's what you said, I can do it.
well, yeah. If you dream it, I do have some comments.
Do it.
I do have some comments.
What? Oh, am I supposed to read?
She got so used to be talking, she said, I'm done.
What are your future plans?
Actually, to be honest with you, I'm kind of tired of hanging off of ladders and scaffolding, and I'm actually going to start getting more into painting on canvas and getting into the studio and doing something I want to do. The Lady in Yellow and the Patiently Waiting were the first two oil paintings that I've done in 35 years. So, and all those others were acrylic paintings that had been for Christmas presents. So I think that's probably what I'm going to do. Just try to,
That sounds good.
Try to slow down a
You gonna
little
sell
bit.
some of them?
yeah. If somebody wants to buy them, I'll,
So, do you have any advice you want to share with everybody?
well, if I had advice, I have somebody coming to me all the time saying, hey, my daughter or my son is really interested in art. What's your advice to them? And I have found in my world or in my lifetime, you're not going to make it just sitting behind a canvas and painting or sitting somewhere drawing around. Get as versatile as you possibly can in everything. Computers, drafting, and nowadays the kids, they have more at their disposal than any artist has ever had in any time in history. And now I have to admit my drawing skills are really rusty because of the computer. But if I hadn't have broken into the computer back in the early 90s, I probably wouldn't be where I'm at today. Because so much, like I've got a guy that when I was down working on a movie in Florida, he asked me if I was still doing CAD work. I said, yeah. And he said, well, all of our designers at Universal Creative, they're developing everything in SketchUp, which is a 3D program. But the problem with SketchUp is it doesn't relate to CNC routers and things like that. And the city of Orlando requires CAD drawings, not SketchUp drawings. So he was asking if I would be willing to take their drawings that they've got in their SketchUp system and put it in CAD. And you know, of course, I was in the middle of Florida Wild at the point at that time, so I wasn't able to do anything with him, but, you know, I may search that out. But that takes me away from wanting to get into, you know, just painting and doing stuff I want to do.
But it's a skill that you have that obviously people are not developing today. The CAD.
Well, you know, I mean, you know, please don't take this as somebody bragging, but when we were doing the West Virginia State Museum and the Coca-Cola and the Ferrari stuff, there was probably only 20 or 30 people in the entire United States that was doing that kind of stuff that we were doing. Because we were doing it in AutoCAD and sending it to the different companies that required AutoCAD. And people just wasn't doing that. Your graphics people, they were in the world of Mac. And at that time, Mac didn't have, they weren't offering 3D program, or weren't offering a CAD, you know, in the Mac world. So, you know, we had the upper edge on a lot of situations early on. But now, you know, a lot of that stuff has gone by the wayside now. You know, a lot more people getting involved. I was talking with some of the ladies in here a while ago. You know, the mural world is having a revival, but what I see the mural world going to is away from old school. It's going away from the people or the things that I like to paint, or things that's meaningful. I've always said, you know, that in the world of murals, that mural needs to speak to you and tell you what it's about in 30 seconds or less. You know, if it takes longer than that, you have to stand there and study it, you know, at a stoplight or whatever. You know, it may as well be in a museum or in a gallery somewhere. You know, because murals were, you know, I feel like they, in my opinion, they were created to get a point across in a very short time. And it just seems, it seems like it's not going that route anymore. And another thing too is, and y'all will have to tell me to shut up because I'll keep going. The thing about murals, not all artists can and will be muralists, but most muralists are artists. It takes some planning and some ideas and things like, or some really thinking to take something this big and put it on a wall that's 200 times bigger. A lot of people say, well, you just use bigger brushes. It's not quite that simple. Not quite that simple. And one of the things that drives me nuts nowadays is it's almost like artists are throwing away color theory. And Don and I are always talking about color theory. We'll walk into a restaurant or into somebody's house or whatever, and I'm going, they're using 4 different shades of brown. They're using a cool brown and a warm brown, or using cool blues and warm. It's like, But and when she sees a painting that she really, and by the way, she does good painting as well. But oh yeah, she won't let, when I'm telling her, she sets up her easel right beside mine, and I'll reach over to do something, she'll go. So, but when you see, usually when she sees something that she really likes, I'll tear it apart and say, well, it's because, okay, you got this much blue in there, so
He
you
wants
got
to tell me why I like it.
Yeah, why she likes it. Anyway,
That's good.
all right. Questions and answers? Any questions? Oh, come on.
I want to say thank you for having to get a chance to spend time with you up at the garden when you were painting. That's when we first met and talked. Remember that?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, I went home and told her, I said, that was great. Because it was like we'd known each other forever.
Yeah.
And just having those conversations and,
He can talk.
well, we had motorcycles in common.
Oh, yeah.
So the conversations,
And they talk.
and we were there probably an hour. It was hot that day.
Yeah.
And,
Oh, yeah.
But it was great. I want to thank you for taking that
Well, thank
time
you.
while you were doing your work to have a conversation. That
Yeah.
meant a lot, to us to be able to talk to you
Yeah.
while you were working doing that. Thank you.
Some inspiration came from Carol, who passed away. As a matter of fact, that one, what kind of plant is it?
That- Yeah.
What was she famous for? She was famous for that
Artichokes?
artichoke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The artichoke, and that's a little bit of history, the artichoke on that mural is a picture of her artichoke in her
In
garden.
her garden.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And,
She always-
and I've got a picture of a bumblebee that landed on the mural.
Oh, wow. So
It
it
looks
was,
so real.
yeah, it's just,
But it was fun. And, of course, the Coca-Cola mural came from, me doing the,
right.
because I don't know what the guy's name, Garrett?
Yes, Garrett.
Yes.
He was so adamant about that.
Oh, man, he would come to me, he said, and he told me all about, he's the one that got me interested in the history of the Coca-Cola mural. And he told me, you can go on the website and you'll see this and this. And so, he led me to all the different stuff on that one. So it was cool, it was fun.
Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. I can go another 2 hours if you want to.
I think everybody needs a little refreshment.
We'll see another topic and come back.
Maybe I'll have another project I'm talking
Nancy will
about.
give you another topic. Oh, yeah. Mhm.
Guys, introduce yourself to Gail. She,
Doc's wife.
Doc's wife, I'm sorry. Gail
Yes.
Weathers. Gail Weathers, I'm sorry.
I'm Gail.
I just feel like everybody knows her because I do.